Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, I got some stuff to say about the truth community, what's happened to the whole idea of alternative media on the internets. But first, this came up, so I might as well cover this, get it out of the way. Britney Spears says, music hiatus is a big FU to her family. So she said this in her Instagram post. Not doing music anymore is my way of saying FU, in a sense, when it actually benefits my family by ignoring my real work, she wrote in a post. It's like I've been subconsciously letting them win. So I went to look at the full post, and it's this one right here. And it starts off here. When you wake up, pray. When life gets hard, pray. If you're unsure, pray. When you're happy, pray. God is always with us. You know, there's a little bit of a difference between my view on praying and like her view, and many of yours. In the heartfulness system, the idea is that praying is begging, like people pray to get something from God. I mean, that's how people usually pray. And meditation is receiving, where you open up and connect to God, and you get from God whatever God decides to give you, right? Whatever, is, well, God sees what you need and gives it to you, right? So there's a difference between that. You pray for something specific. Usually when people pray, they're telling God what they want to happen. They have a problem and they want God to solve the problem in the way that they think it should be solved. Where meditation, you take whatever God gives you and you're grateful for it. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. But anyways, then she goes on to this incredible rant, and I'm like, I can't get through this. Come on, Britney. But somewhere in here, she says she's not singing is a big FU to her family. But I think she has it all wrong. I think she should sing to get back at her family, right?
I want you to know just what I mean. Yeah. Ooh.
She should just send them voicemails of this, right? Just torture them. That was like some kind of bizarre death rattle. And so there's a video out there, a couple of them. I watched these years ago. Somebody maybe sent them to me. But Britney Spears was doing a live show, and it had her raw audio. Like the audio was being auto-tuned and stuff for the audience. And so they weren't hearing her raw voice, even though it was a live show. But somebody grabbed her raw audio, and it was like even much worse than this, right? It was substantially worse because she was singing, she was dancing and out of breath. So she's not a good singer normally. She's got that kind of weird vibrato, and I mean they've worked on her voice. They really, they've done things to make her sound better than she is. So she's not really a good singer, right? That's what she's supposed to be, but she's never had like a great singing voice. So we know Britney can't sing, but can she dance, right? Because I have no way of evaluating this, right? Her dances seem crazy town and weird. I had a lot of people requested that I do more of these interpretations of Britney's dance. And so there she is, shaking her head, handing you some water. She's giving you some water. She's offering her fan some water. That's nice of her. And then shaking her head. No, take it back. Yeah, she's getting cocky. Oh, yeah. Swirl her hair. Oh, take a drink. You're thirsty. Boom. She just Alec Baldwin you. Let's watch that again. She's got her gun up here. Big, giant, colossal cursor nose. Here's her gun. She's getting in her Alec Baldwin pose. She's doing the Hillary toe point. Hilaria toe point. She's getting ready. Ready? And boom, you just got Alec Baldwined. And then she's bending down, and it's going to be, so I put the water down, then do your hair. Look at my arms. Look at my crazy arms. Look at look at what I'm doing here. Wow, look at that. Look at my hair. I'm going to spin. Yeah, when in doubt, I always spin. I'm going to spin around, and I do that. Yeah, more arms. Look at my magic arms. Look at that. Ooh, I'm a genie. Ooh, I'm a genie. I'm going to spin around and cast a spell. And then I'm going to spin around some more. Then I'm going to do that. Come and look at you. Get close up. Get a little thing. Walk away. Then I get, where did I go? I came back. Like just as if it was magic. I'm going to spin my hair around. Do it again. My arms. My crazy arms. Like I'm going to spin. Look at my arms. Look at my heart. Look at my arms. Look at my arms. Okay, there's the water again. We're back to the beginning. My fake smile. Doing this thing. And I'm going to Alec Baldwin you. Ready? Plow! You got Baldwined. So the crazy thing that I realized is that 74, 76 of the people that follow me also follow Britney. And so these are all people. And that's why I get so many people said to be Britney stuff, right? Like I get so many people said to be like Britney clips from her Instagram page because about half of my Instagram followers are also following Britney. That's a little bit concerning to me. So I was thinking about this, right? She's not like a good dancer. I mean, it's crazy dance and she's crazy town. She's, got an annoying high little kid voice, but somehow through Disney and whatever made her into like the top pop female artist for years, made her into Britney, like she's known by her first name, right? She's a first namer, right? People are like, oh, Britney. Yeah, I know Britney is, right? She's a household name, and so many people obsessed with her. She's got 36 million followers, the whole Free Britney army. I mean, even people in the truth community, almost every video I make on Britney, somebody's like, oh, but she was so they're always making excuses. Oh, her family tortured her, as opposed to all these other celebrities that all had crappy families and were all exploited. All these child actors. I mean, people don't say the same thing about like Corey Feldman or Danny Bonaducci. All these momagers and, these families that exploit their children, put them into Hollywood and Disney, and they get, completely messed up psychologically. But with like not that much talent, Britney has been made into some sort of an icon, and now she is one of the bigger social media celebrities. So to transition to the truther stuff I was going to talk about, I made this video, Omicron, dominating Delta means this is over, right? So this was something that I followed up today with a longer video on my backup channel. And what happened was somebody sent me this cartoon of, it's a real old cartoon, and there's a character, an alien, named Omicron. And the person really didn't explain anything. They just sent me the video. This happens all the time. And I think they assumed I knew something that I didn't. Because in the cartoon, Omicron and their little dog or whatever is searching for Sputnik, right? And, I just thought it was some old 60s cartoon, poorly done. But then I got a few comments of people saying Sputnik is the name of the Russian vaccine. And so then it made a lot more sense, right? Because people are looking for, Omicron is a letter in the Greek alphabet, and people are always looking for predictive programming and reading things into things that, aren't there. But if I had known that, it would have been a different video. But the person assumed I did, and this is, a big problem in the truth community because there's lots of people who assume other people are watching the same videos or, when people leave me, when people send me things like this, oftentimes they just send me something random and without any context or explanation, and they expect me to figure it out. Maybe I don't know. Like people think I know things that I don't, right? They just assume, well, this guy, must know this, right? He makes videos on it. And there's a lot of theories and things that are out there in the truth community, and I don't know them. Like I've never heard of them. and, in many cases don't agree with them. The reason I'm saying that is because, people today, the divisiveness that's happening across our country and the globe is about how we don't have the same shared authority, right? We don't believe in the same so-called facts because we no longer believe in the official story. So it used to be that people trusted the news. Back when I grew up, Walter Cronkite, some of these other people, people trusted the government. There was, of course, the hippie movement that was going on at that time, but the majority of people agreed on the same basic principles and facts. And when they were arguing about something, there wasn't the internet, right? And so they would go to some authority figure. They're much more trusting of the system, but that's no longer the case, right? So when you see like mainstream news, or you see a politician talking or Jojo Magoo talking, somebody like that, and they say, well, these are the facts because this is what our science says, this is what our official government position is, these are the facts, right? And the news media then reports these so-called facts, right? And we don't agree that they're facts. We don't agree that these people are the authorities, the arbiters of truth, right? Like, let's say you were arguing with somebody, one of your sheeple relatives, and they said, all right, let's go ask Snopes, right? Let's go ask one of these fact checkers, which we know Facebook, when they were testifying, they said that their fact checkers were basically opinions, right? They weren't facts. And I've said this over and over again. Like when you're talking about history, there's no real historical facts. I mean, there's like some of the bigger events, like, like there's been wars or there's been earthquakes or there's been, diseases, there's been invasions, there was slavery. I mean, there's all these things that actually historically happened, right? So there was the Europeans that came over to America, and then you get into, was Christopher Columbus a hero or not, right? All right, there, Christopher Columbus came over to America, but was he a hero? Because, he abused people. He abused the native people that he discovered when he got here. And so, he's said to be a hero, but to Native American people and, many like liberal woke people, he's a villain, right? And, I believe he's more of a villain, certainly more of a villain. What he did was adventurous and it took some courage, but then, when he got to America or the Bahamas or wherever it was, right? What he did then was it. And so when I grew up, though, it was agreed upon by most people that Christopher Columbus was a hero, right? But that stuff doesn't exist anymore because of the internet. Everyone gets their, ideas of who's the authority, and most people think they're an authority themselves, right? That they're the arbiters of truth and they get it and other people don't. When you're talking about the truth community, there are, these various levels. Like, you have the 5 stages of grief or whatever it is, and the people who are more extreme than you are crazy, right? The people who are, pitching things like QBs and, the people who are believing crazy stuff, like stuff that's too far out there and, they're reaching too much, whatever it is, they're crazy. But the people who don't agree with you and are, more conservative and they're open to some of these ideas, but they don't come out and say, yeah, no, it's definitely that way. Those people are, more on the sheeple side of things, right? Like they're kind of like truthers, but they're not nearly as far along as you are, right? And that's how most people see it, not just in terms of the truth community, but in general in life, right? And then there are these laws or rules in any sort of belief system. And most people who are in that belief system think that everyone else in that belief system believes in these same laws and rules that they do. And then you have these things, that go around your community of people, and they're just accepted as truth. They're accepted as, this happened this way, and all of us, just agree upon this. We all have to agree upon this. And then you find people who are like, well, I have a different interpretation of this, right? Because that's what all this is about, is people's interpretation of what's happening. Like COVID is happening. You could say it's fake, like some people, the flubies, they don't believe that COVID's real. And you can say, I believe everything the government says, but still that's all based in perception. You're just basing, an event, like COVID's an event, But there's so many different ways that people perceive what's happening, right? And we all have our information. We all have our different ways of evaluating it. We all have our experiences with it, past experiences with it. Like, for example, if you had, bad experiences with the modern day medical system and or the media or the government, then you're less likely to believe the official story, right? And so, this is how people have their own personal interpretation of an event. It's historically factual that the event happened, but why has it happened? How has it happened? What's really happening? Is there something that's beneath what's happening? Is there something deeper, right? There's the rabbit hole of the truth community. Sometimes the rabbit hole is filled with information. Sometimes the rabbit hole is filled with disinformation, right? And people just go down it. And then there's this sort of consensus about what happened. And everyone in the truth community now is supposed to agree with that consensus. Because at the basis of this, right now, everybody really wants other people to believe what they believe. Like, never before have we seen this, because most people just accepted the official story and really didn't care, right? Like, when I grew up, most people didn't care the official story. They didn't talk about it. They didn't, weren't interested in, okay, this is what the government says, this is what the news says. And then they just went on with their lives and did what they wanted to do. Most events didn't affect them. Most things that were happening didn't concern them. They weren't really interested in them. But people are now, right? So much so that they want to cancel you for believing something that they don't agree with. I mean, that's how bad it's gone. They want, you to suffer. They want you to be thrown out of society for not believing what they believe, not agreeing with their interpretation of reality. And so that got really bad in this year, the year of the schism. I mean, starting off with, January 6th and the Trump election, all these things, and then Biden becoming president, and just the divisiveness, and then all the divisive aspects of COVID. Of course, the vaccine was very divisive, and all the rest of it. So you see a very clear split where families aren't together on holidays now because of their different positions on COVID and politics. I mean, it's a division that can't be healed, right? Like, you don't want to talk to anybody. If you're a truther, it's really hard to talk to anybody who believes in the official story. Before it was hard. Now it's like there's a hatred there, right? There's a complete, I can't believe you believe this. Like, those people don't even exist, on both sides, right? People are so polarized now. And so this was the year of the schism. In the next couple of days, I'm going to do my, what 2022 is going to be. That was an easy one, right? Like, I didn't really even have to think about it, but that's coming. But anyways, getting back to the central point of this video, I say it over and over again. I don't watch other truther videos. Like, I don't, delve into the truth community because it doesn't matter to me anymore. If I wasn't making videos about it and doing this, as a job, I would have almost no interest in it because my decisions have already been made. Like, just my ability to interpret what's happening in, take the official story, whatever the news is reporting, whatever is going on, and my position is already, it's like a template that already, I know what I believe about it, right? Or I know what I'm going to do about it. Like, my decisions and the course for me and my family, at least me and my wife, has already been set. My kids have to make their own decisions. But, in terms of the last, 30 years of my life, whatever's left, 30, 40 years maybe, I don't know. That everything that I'm doing in terms of our goals and, what my wife and I are creating in terms of, our farming and things like that is already set, right? Like, it's, there's of course going to be some changes and adaptation. Of course, the goal of my life connected to the heartfulness system and meditating and the spiritual aspects and all these things. In the beginning, it wasn't the case. When I first came to the truth community, and my brother had told me some things, and I knew some other things, but it was really in the early 2000s when I was coming to the truth community, when the truth community just sort of took off or whatever, alternative media on the internet. There was so much that I didn't know about any of these things, right? Of course, a lot of these things hadn't even happened yet, but just understanding the basic structure of the, the sort of power system and shadow government stuff and all these basic principles of, what we now call the truth community, right? These fundamental building blocks of what's now considered the truth community. And so there was this basic idea for anybody who is a truther, and I think it's about 50 to, maybe 80% of the people now, if you include the woke people or the cubies in this. Like, this is the basic nursery school level, kindergarten level idea of the truth community. And that is that the mainstream media and the government and the official story and the democracy that we have and the historical aspect of our system is not true, right? There is a deeper level of truth. There is power that, runs the government that is not, the American people. That's not a democratic system. There's wealthy people that are in some sort of secret society way guiding the course of our country, whatever you want to call it. So if you think that woke people think this and cubies think this and, lots of people who we don't consider truthers, people who don't seem to have much critical thinking skills and they're just part of some mass emotional movement, they also believe in this, right? All these different people, I would say, the majority of Americans believe that there is a hidden truth, some kind of conspiracies or some kind of, people love conspiracies. I've talked about that before. Conspiracy books and, fictional conspiracy movies and books like Dan Brown's books. And there's so many movies about having a conspiracy. I've talked about this quite extensively, that people believe that there is some hidden knowledge and there is stuff being hidden from them. And, whatever it is, there is a difference between the official story and what's actually true. Most people believe that to some degree. And so the differences are what we differ in is now there's a vacuum of what really is, right? Okay, we know what it's not. We know that the official story isn't true. We know that the so-called, authoritarian media, authoritative media, that's preferenced by YouTube and Facebook, right? Those are the, official story people. So I just went and looked it up, and there's the latest poll. There's a Gallup poll. And again, people don't believe in polls, but this Gallup poll said about 36%, 1/3 of the country trusts the media. So that means 66% don't, which is an interesting number, right? So 2/3 of the country don't trust the media, but what do they trust, right? What is the truth, right? All right, this is lies. We don't believe this. What do we believe in? And that's where that's where the shit show begins, right? That's where you have, and then specifically people who identify as truthers, there's a lot of differences and discrepancies that people aren't aware of. And so in the beginning, there was more of sort of a shared understanding of alternative narratives. Like there was, of course, bickering and differences and about the big events, but now there is, such a plethora of theories, right? Like before, would be people who believed in the official story, and some people leaned to the right, some people leaned to the left. They had different interpretations, but it was, almost binary, right? Either you believed in the official story, and that was most people, and then there was some, argument about details, but everyone sort of kind of shared the same basic idea of reality, right? It was within a very narrow bandwidth, and then anybody outside of that was an extremist, and people thought like a crazy person, and no one, took them seriously, and there was no venue, there was no platform for them to express themselves, right? Because you had to go through the FCC, had very strict rules. There was censorship. You couldn't even swear, right, on network, whatever it was. And so there's network television, limited, of course, then cable and things, but it was limited. And then there was AM radio. And then you might get a cable access, local stuff, local AM radio or something. But even then, you were very highly regulated. But if you look at like the most extreme right, the most extreme left, the most extreme truther narratives, and then the people who, believe in the official story, there's such a schism, there's such a gap between, all these different groups, such an extreme difference that they can't agree on the fundamental principles of reality, right? It's harder and harder to find somebody that you share common beliefs. I mean, even in like truther marriages, there would be like this discrepancy, right? This huge gap between, on any one issue, one person will believe this, the other person will believe that, right? And then it's like, how can you believe that, right? That's how people think. How could you possibly believe that? I can't believe you believe that, right? And then you become like some enemy, right? Or some oppositional force because of the beliefs. And that's how divisive things have got. So like I said in the beginning, when I was a consumer and I was learning about these different truther narratives, I, watched a lot of truther videos. I watched a lot of different YouTube channels and theories, but most of the people were very fear-based. They came from the Alex Jones model, right? They were disciples of Alex Jones in some way or another, and then they started their own thing. And it was all this Chicken Little approach. And back then I had, my older videos are all homesteading videos. So this goes back to 2007. I already knew a lot of the truther narratives, but I didn't talk about them, so much. I talk about them a little here or there, but they were a part of, my understanding of reality, the lens in which I saw the world. And then when I knew more, I started to add them to my videos in 2000, 9, 10, 11. I added more and more of the truther stuff, and eventually I wasn't doing any of the homesteading stuff anymore, and I was just making truther videos. In the beginning, I subscribed to a lot of the, fundamental beliefs in the truth community. But then as a presenter, I started to do more research about them, right? Some things I just repeated, right? So there were things that everybody knew. This is true. This is this is one of the principles. It's the truth or dogma. But then when I looked into them, I found out they were completely wrong, right? There was no basis for them. Either they were disinformation put in there by some government troll, but more likely people were just making things up or making huge leaps and, creating a reality, saying things were factual when they were very speculative. Like thermite, I did a video about the thermite thing, and I found that to be completely wrong. Like there was just no evidence for it, right? And this goes back to, something that happened years and years ago, like 20 years ago. And so that became something where most people believed in it. And then when I said, hey, this isn't actually factual, people got bummed and left comments and were hostile because they thought it was one of the, it was like going against the truth or Bible or something, right? But, more and more I found that things were just made up and that, I got to the point where I realized I needed to talk about things as speculation because people just announce reality and then other people just say, oh, this must be true. And it got repeated by other people. And so I was very careful to sort of make a difference between being speculative or announcing something as truth when I didn't know it to be true, right? And you see a lot of this now because I get a lot of comments about this or people send me things. And I see that there are a lot of conflicting beliefs about COVID, for example, and some of the COVID stuff that people put out there, and they announce it like it's fact, but they believe two things that can't, they say two things that are fact can't be true. They both can't be true, right? About the, the Voldemort or whatever it is, they both can't be true, right? Both things can't be true, So how are you announcing it's fact, right? And so now the truth community is kind of a joke because there's so much disinformation out there. There's so many people in the truth community now that don't have the ability for critical thinking or abstract thought. They just don't have the, brain for it. They're just not developed enough. And, they're very emotional, very rigid in their beliefs. And they want, solid, concrete, this is the way it is. And you're never going to get it, right? Because the powers that be are never going to admit to things or divulge this information that they have and you don't have. So you're never going to get that, right? And, so many people present truther material with fear and with anger and with hatred about demonizing one group, mostly the liberals and the Democrats, when, Trump and the Republicans are all part of it, right? And that there is no left, right. It's just all a part of it. Maybe one side seems a little bit better than the other side, but they're both going along with it. They're both guilty and complicit. And so, for all of these reasons, and the biggest one is I just want to have my own original take on it, my original, thought process. That's why people watch my videos, and I say things that are different or things that, they haven't heard before, because I'm not just repeating what everyone else believes in the truth community. Like, I have my own take on it, and I often give different theories, like different speculative ideas of what could happen, and so they're not consistent with each other, right? Like, I present just possibilities of what it could be. I'm not, saying that any of it's factual, because I can't really prove it one way or another, and don't really care to. It doesn't matter, because it's not going to change anything. The other thing is, I don't believe the system can be saved. I mean, I've looked at the numbers. I looked at how desperate they are. I look at how underdeveloped people are. That's the biggest one. Like, people have to drastically change, and the system is taking us in the wrong direction. People are getting stupider, weaker. I mean, everything that's bad in human beings is getting worse because of the system. And now, because of the internet and isolation and a lack of a real world presence, and, just the weakness and the fear and the hatred and the negativity, all these egotistical qualities, those things are getting worse. The system is feeding those, and they're cutting people off from the divinity that's within you, right? They're cutting you off from that. Your religion's doing that, and the system's doing that, taking you away from God, worshiping, the religion of science now, the mainstream media, all those things, the powers that be. We're less and less like natural human beings. We're not behaving and even knowing how to be a natural human being. Our food is fake. Everything's fake, right? Everything in our world is fake. And then, of course, we've been, divided from our families. People don't need their family anymore. They don't like their family. And many people have huge disagreements about reality in their family, even in the husband and wife themselves, but certainly now with the kids. Kids are growing up with a completely different reality. They're growing up with Hollywood morality and all this stuff to do with the internet. And you got a house full of people and everyone's lonely. So the whole system is making people worse. And the system is supposed to make people better. It's disconnecting us from what's best in us and God. And that's the most important thing, right? That's what the system's supposed to do, is align itself with the divine will and help human beings rise to a higher level. But our system is bringing us down to a lower level, a lower vibratory level, a lower vibration, a lower consciousness. And so for that reason, there's no saving the system. The system isn't good for us. And so, nothing on my channel is about saving the system. I don't want it to go, because I'm 100% dependent on it, right? My family, my wife and I are older, and, my kids. I mean, somebody's getting stuck with it, right? The hot potato game, the Wonder Ball game, right? These, games I played when I was a kid. Somebody gets stuck with a hot potato, right? Somebody loses. Some generation's going to have to bite the bullet on this thing and deal with a collapsed system. And the system is collapsing. Like, there's no doubt about it, like, for me. And so, I'm not about that. Like, I'm about what can you do post the collapse, right? This is the idea of pockets of the future, the heartfulness meditation, connecting to God internally, raising your consciousness and vibratory level, and creating a system that is coming from a higher place within every person, right? We're manifesting a collective system, and we're all on a higher level of consciousness. Now, the heartfulness system helps people who work at it to become saintly and rise up to a higher level in terms of their spiritual evolution and connect to God on deeper levels and use their heart, which is the, seat of their soul, their place where divinity is, also a place where your grossness is stored. So it's both things, but cleaning the grossness, cleansing your lens and your vision and your understanding of reality, and rising up to a higher level of consciousness. And so I believe that to be the solution. And so the system can't be fixed in my way of thinking about it, but we can see it. Like, I, demonstrate how, the system is completely corrupt, it's completely deranged, and that we have to, work on the next thing, like build something better, right? Go beyond what we have now and help start manifesting something for the future. And so when people send me things, don't assume that I know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not watching other truthers. If somebody doesn't comment or I don't, find it on my own, Like if you send me something, you need to explain what it is. I get people send me things all the time, and I'm like, what is this, right? It's an hour-long video. I'm not watching it. Like, don't send me things in terms of entertainment. Like, oh, you might enjoy this, or this guy's like you. No, I don't want to watch a guy like me. I don't even want to watch me, right? I don't even want to listen to me. I don't want to listen to a guy like me, right? My brother used to say, we need a guy like you. Not you, but a guy like you, right? That was one of his 1960s jokes or whatever it was. I'm not here to, be video buddies or, like you send me stuff that I might use. I mean, the only thing that interests me is sending me things that I might use on the channel. Like it helps me when you do that. It benefits me because it means less time that I spend on the computer, less time I have to, do research and things where I get sent things like topics or whatever. I mean, people do that all the time, and I'm very grateful for it because it saves me a lot of time. And then people timestamp it, right? People say, someone sent me a video on Kamala, and I ended up not using it because it was CBS, and they're big on copywriting things, and there wasn't, stuff in there that I wanted to cover, given everything else I'm doing right now. But the person, had timestamps of different topics that she was talking about, wonderful things, right? It just makes it so much easier on me. But also, like, explaining things to me. People send me random stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is, right? Like, I don't know why this is, Like, it doesn't have to be like paragraphs, just a brief explanation, in a concise way. People need to learn how to express themselves. Even in the comment section, I see this. People have trouble articulating just basic ideas. Everyone needs to be better at communication. It's just, imperative. Like, that's a big part of the whole problem is there's been a complete communication breakdown. And there's a lot of stuff that's out there in the truth community that's just absolutely fake, and it's wrecked the truth community. People purposefully making up stuff, and I've talked about this for years. Like someone sent me this, it was a fake New York Times article. I'm not going to talk about what it's about, but it was, it was not real, and it was passed around the internet and Facebook, and then they can go aha and censor everybody because of the fake stuff that's being put out. And, it could be disinformation agents, but a lot of times it's not. Like, why, put out fake stuff, and everyone's got to be a little bit more careful when they see something and realize this doesn't sound right and just search it, right? Because I have to do that. Like, I always search for the original source and, try to figure it out because so much of the stuff is just not true. Like, it's just completely made up. And people do that even though there's so much evidence to support the truther narratives. They still feel like they have to lie. You're just as bad or even worse than the so-called mainstream media. And one of the big differences is the mainstream media has editors, and they're, most of them have been trained in professional journalism. And you have random people who just get emotional and get fired up and just either put stuff out that's not true, and they say, what does it matter? They're just evil, so we can make up lies about them, even if we're being dishonest. It's okay because the other side is so evil that we can do anything. And that's, then you're just as bad as the so-called controllers. Okay, so anyways, I just wanted to clarify those things that I thought would be interesting for people. I got a long video on my other channel today about the Surgeon General talking about how there's a crisis of mental health in young people. And, and so that's, I think, worth a listen if you're not aware of the apocalaughsnow channel. There's links in the description box. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.